actually. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have internet here at my house because my mom doesn't have internet. She doesn't need it. She has her cell phone. That's it. Anyways, as we were talking about, since we were talking cell phones, okay, so cell phones are amazing devices, and Google just announced or just released Night Shot for their Pixel phones and I think some OneNote phones. Anyways, what's neat about Night Shot is it gives you pretty much like the ability to see in the dark here. At least if you look at these sample shots, these sample shots that have very very low light situations, and they're being lit up like it's practically daylight, and it's really amazing stuff. But the way they're achieving this is through essentially image stacking. So your camera is shooting like a bunch of multiple exposure, long exposure shots, like 16 of them or something, 15 shots, and it stacks them all to create this image that's almost magical in terms of its ability to capture low light, light information in situations where there really isn't much. But
Yeah.
what I want to ask about, and get your thoughts on, Travis,
Hmm.
is do you think this is ethical? Is this something that people are going to shoot these shots and they're going to pass them off as just regular shots? But
Yeah.
again, you know, is this ethical? Is this fall under journalistic standards? Which should news agencies or whatnot use these pictures? What do you think?
Well, I think just with any technology, it's the intent and use. I think it could be ethical in the way it can be used, but also I mean, certainly they've used night scope vision for wartime and stuff like that, and video footage of showing missiles and enemy troops, and you certainly I remember in your youth always seeing that green colored image and those shots that on news footage. So it's certainly been used before, but now that the it is so commonplace that anybody can take shots at night and you wouldn't know it because it could be dark enough and you don't see them kind of shooting. There's a real gray line there. There's a line that can definitely be crossed, and it kind of scary and sort of intent. I know I shot on the Sony A7S when it first came out, and that was like magic elves. You could pump up the ISO on that, and literally I would be on a beach and I things in front of me I could see in the camera that I couldn't see with my own eye almost, and it's incredible the capability and what we're able to do now that and it just keeps improving every day, and that you can put this on a phone now. That's pretty crazy.
Well, I think the major difference there is when you're talking about like night vision, um, that's technology, but it's still technology that is effectively producing one image. It's
Yeah.
just causing the enhancement of the light, whatever light is in there, and burning that image via a CCD. And it's the same thing um, with the A7S or whatever. It's just really high ISO and a good ability
Yeah.
to manage that light. But I think with the Google Pixel, and my personal take is that I think it's unethical, at least for journalistic work. Um,
Hmm.
is that it's taking multiple images, and even though it's all being done in camera and it's all being done by AI, it's taking those
Right.
multiple images and it's creating a new image based on that. So, you
And
know, it's the same thing as if you were to do like HDR photography, right? And you take the underexposed shot and the overexposed shot and the normal shot, and you combine it to make an HDR image. That's not ethical in my probably anybody's general I think understanding of what makes ethical shots, but because it's a photo manipulation. It's creating this thing, and I think just because an AI does it in camera doesn't make it any less um, you know less true, in my opinion.
yeah, but the capabilities, I mean, you're not altering what's actually happening in front of the lens. You're enhancing the final image of it. So, I mean, when you started out in film, there were, we've improved over the years on ISO and bringing higher ISO films prior to it. And now that we have the capability to do that in technology, it's sort of the same thing. It's just bringing it to another level. So, I mean, I would understand if you were going in and actually change, like journalistic integrity is about not changing what you're seeing and stuff like that. True. But, and I know you can't go in and take a photo and like Photoshop something out of it, but if you're enhancing an image of something that's all there in the picture in the first place? Are you really changing the picture, or are you just using tools to show what's there, that's actually there?
Yeah, no, I'm sure you're showing what's there. You're not, you're not changing what you're seeing. But again, I think if you're doing anything to the image in the camera, again, you're using technique that is, outside of the realm of here's what you see. The light from that image goes through a lens and it hits a sensor. Like that is the purest form of what you can do to take a picture. When you start saying
Right.
like, okay, the computer, the brain, and the phone is going to take the best parts of each image to make this outstanding looking, low light shot,
Yeah.
then that becomes, I think, an ethical issue. Only because, again, it's a composite. It's just because it's not being done by a human doesn't mean there isn't, um, I would say, a level of. Um, I still think there's an issue there, and that's why we go and talk about this. This extends into things like citizen journalism. So
Yeah.
you have a news publication or something like that. Do they choose to run imagery from the general public, knowing that you know even if it isn't this night shot thing, anyone nowadays can go in, take a photograph with their phone, and they have this robust editing software on their phone, that they can do with some manipulation to it that may or may not be ethical or take it beyond the ethical sort of dark room standards, if you will. Even that's a misnomer because you can do things in the dark room that are pretty misleading.
Yeah.
But again, doing things to the image that are inappropriate and then submitting it to a news agency. And I don't know, as a someone, if I were a news producer, someone who relied on imagery from the scene, I would have to take probably most of it now with a grain of salt because it can all be manipulated, and I would have to be very wary about what I choose to essentially back up and promote. And I
Yeah.
think that can be good for the standard photojournalist or video journalist who's on the scene, who's doing the job because you have a bit more weight, you have a bit more, hopefully credence behind you. You're not just somebody with a cell phone. You're out there with actual camera equipment. You're shooting, you're editing, you're uploading, you're captioning, you're doing all the work, and so uh, hopefully this kind of gives those folks more credence.
But I mean, if you take just for an example, say maybe a war photographer, and the say you're in a hostile situation where you cannot use flash, and it would give away your position, and the photographer's there and taking a picture of someone that's right in front of them, maybe looking out a window or something like that. You're not changing that situation, but you are capturing something that's very real in that moment, and it gives you the technology to capture something and show something to an audience that normally might not be able to show because of the dangers of using a flash or some other type of thing. So I mean, it's all intent. If I'm in a bathroom, in a dark bathroom, and I'm using that to take a picture of someone that doesn't know I'm there, that's sort of that's unethical. But if you're using it for the right purposes in the show, you're not changing what's in front of the camera, you're just highlighting it through software that's enhancing the image that's really in front of you.
So I'd say if any combat photographers are going out there in the field and documenting anything with their cell phones, they're wrong. I would hope that they're
Well, no,
using.
but I'm just saying the technology to be able to do something like that in a safer situation and to capture things in a situation, in a dark situation, maybe in a room that you would never have been able to capture before.
Sure, I mean, I think this night shot is neat, and I think it's really great for cell phones, But like you said, the A7S3, the A7S, or the A7 III, these cameras can get this same level of low light capability, I think, straight out of the camera. What this does is this gives people with cell phones a bit more capability and range that they would not have access to otherwise without, again, the large sensor, full frame sensor type cameras that have, that cost up $1,000 with their lenses and
Yeah.
their low aperture lenses. I think what the combat photographers are doing is they're taking out there again with they're not using flash. They're either using night vision, which is garbage in my opinion nowadays. With this kind of grainy, green
Yeah.
circular imagery and stuff like that. It's not very good. or they're taking out the Sonys and stuff like that and shooting really low light stuff. We were doing some testing of it, of different types of cameras and stuff, and the Sonys, the Sony A7S II and whatnot, came very close to night vision in
That's
terms of
pretty
its
impressive. Yeah.
capability. I'd say
Yeah.
it's not fully there. I think night vision still has a leg up because,
Yeah.
again, the technology is it's incredible. It's just, it leads to really poor quality stuff. Perhaps, again, this could be used, but it would have to be used in a sort of way, in a post-processing way, perhaps to get more detail out of the shot. But I would still hesitate to look at any image captured, using any of this new advanced software on its face. Just me personally.
Because yeah, but yeah, unfortunately, it's like we weren't able to capture 20 frames a second with a camera prior, or we weren't able to. Technology changing, and the way the technology is going to go, pretty soon we're going to have these cameras that are basically near field cameras that are going to take every focal length, every light thing, and it's going to be able to do things in post that you would never be able to do before. So we're going to have to figure out how that works into the system because it's coming.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I'd love to have a camera that allows me to choose not only the aperture, not only the shut, let me choose everything after the fact. Let me choose the focal point.
Yep.
Let me choose the aperture. Let me choose the color balance. All that stuff. It's just going to be a setting in Lightroom where you just, okay,
Yep.
The guy's slightly out of focus. Let me just shift the slider to the right here, and now they're in focus.
Yeah.
But that's still
Yeah.
capturing one image, All that is like, again, creating a sensor that can capture 15 different images, but it's at the same time. So if they make a sensor that can capture every focal length, every exposure, every aperture, but in one shutter press, in one same, thousandth of a second that I shoot any photo, but now it shoots dozens of different photos or dozens of different, variables of that same photo, it's still capturing dozens of different variables of that same photo. It's not creating a new image in camera that is combining all that. It's like it's creating something brand new that doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. Like, these photos don't exist. These photos aren't real. These photos are fake. They're made up within the camera body or within the phone. I'm talking about, again, choosing every single little setting after. Great, yeah. I hope for the day and look forward to the day when a camera can do that. And I think it will come here in the next
lighter,
decade.
yeah.
But that's still me choosing the one frame that captures the best version of that image versus, again, an AI or an algorithm compositing an image that, while, again, looks beautiful, looks fantastic, is not. And really, this technology wouldn't really be, relevant for anything other than like stills, like
Yeah.
non-moving objects. I mean, they did some demonstrations with like people and vehicles and stuff like that, and it's all blurry, it's all motiony. So it's like, you're never going to see this out at a protest or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully the idea is just it's a party. That in that dark restaurant where you want to take pictures of friends and you don't have a flash, and it's just for those moments. Hopefully that's all it's intended for.
I mean, it's great for social media. It's great for your Instagram account. It's great for whatever. I definitely highly, if I wish I had this on my phone, I'd probably use it. I'd probably be using it all the time. But I'd be publishing it on Facebook and stuff like that. I wouldn't ever represent this imagery to be like, hey, this is David J. Murphy, professional photojournalism. No, this is just, I'm going to use this stuff on my phone and share it, and maybe I'll put a disclaimer on it. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But I probably, like, the few times when I've actually like taken and created, fake imagery or composites, I've made it explicitly clear in the subtext or the caption that this is a composite image. But those were images where, again, I was trying to get photos of my family, and like one of my sons is looking at the camera and the other one isn't, and then the other one is in the second shot, so I combine the shots to make a perfect image. But again, I disclaim that and I make that clear, but I don't think I disclaim this personally.
I think it runs much deeper into. I think it runs much deeper into what is coming in terms of, and what you bring up is what is reality and what's not reality. And certainly with technology and what's coming down the pipeline of being able to, in real time, make it look like, they can make Obama and take his voice and make a real-time video of someone else in motion capture, and it looks like what is real anymore? So I mean, it's like we're really going to have to figure out how things get stamped, so in this world of fake news, what is real and what's not real. It's only going to get more difficult to know if someone's put out something fake that looks real or not. It's a scary time in terms of how far technology has come.
Yeah. No, totally agree. Totally agree. And speaking of
Yeah.
technology, let's talk about social media. We're talking about it. Um, there is some debate that social media is ruining photography. I'm not of that same mindset, and I don't think you are either. Honestly, considering the last episode we talked about like using photography and social media extensively. But
Yeah.
let's look at it from the devil's advocate way. How do
Yeah.
we think social media is ruining photography? If you were to take that sort of stance, how would you say? I do have some ideas myself, but I'll throw it to you
Yeah.
first.
I definitely think in terms of we live this social media life online now, and when you talk about reality and false reality, we're creating this persona online, and we have to. It's amazing when you walk to a place and everybody's more concerned about getting that selfie and capturing something. Uh, and creating something that doesn't quite exist anymore. And I'm just as guilty of it. It's what I do is social media branding and creating those false worlds and moments in time and creating something that looks fantastic on a grid or something like that. So I think we're in dangerous territory of everybody living through a camera lens, which I love photography, but you got to put the camera down and look what's around you sometimes. So I think in terms of everybody kind of just it's making people go tribal. It's dividing people. You have your own centric circles now. It's like, oh, I this person agrees with me, this third person doesn't agree with me. I'm going to close my circle. So suddenly you're not seeing the same different viewpoints from people, which is really important as a person to really discuss. Like I don't agree with you, but maybe we can come to an agreement. One of the first things that happened to me the other day is that someone was talking about. Medicaid and all that. And I brought up all these other different opinions. He's like, I never thought of that before. And actually, you know what? I took the post down because you did change my mind. That doesn't happen really anymore. Now, people don't go, it's either I'm going to block you, I don't agree with you, or they call you some name. People don't want to discuss things anymore. And I think that's a branching off of what social media is. It's dividing us and putting us into our own safe circles of what we enjoy seeing and what we want to watch. So there is a definite damaging effect to it.
Yeah. I see sort of the damage of social media and photography and how we use photography on social media coming from, you know, obviously we now have a glut of photographers. There's billions of photographers, probably more so now than there ever have been in history, thanks to, of course,
Yeah.
the advent of having a camera in every single cell phone, multiple cameras, in
Yeah.
every single cell phone on Earth, high quality, cameras in most cases, and I think that is again increasing the overall demand of people who want to take pictures. So, go to any sort of landmark, go to any sort of tourist spot anywhere, and you'll just see people out there just shooting photos and taking selfies and doing all this all the time. I think the most irritating part is when like someone asks me to take a group photo, and then they give me half a dozen cameras or half a dozen cell phones to take the group photo with. I'm like, guys, we have this wonderful ability to share digital files nowadays.
I promise you, my camera's going to capture it a lot better.
Exactly. So you see that, and I would say, like some of the stories I've seen written about sort of the burden that photographers create on situations. Like I was watching a story on Petapixel earlier today about this iconic Kansas City spots are banning photographers due to bad apples. So these people
Yeah.
who don't respect property rights, don't expect respect private property, and they're going out there doing their wedding shoots, doing their family photo shoots on these people's doorsteps, and that's partly due to the advent of and then pushing of social media.
Yeah.
And then I was
And you
reading
start.
another story about how it was in Canada. This sunflower farm essentially had to like ban everyone because they were getting overrun by these people who come on to their property, and ultimately they invite people out there. But it's like a business. But it became so incredibly the business was too good, and you just have people like running up and down their sunflowers, trampling their sunflowers, trying to get their shots and stuff like that for their Instagram or whatever. And it's just, again, this is the world we live in, where everyone is a photographer, everyone has a camera, and they all want to get their stuff out there and want to be famous on and in the Instagrams and their social media. So that's where social media ruins photography, because it's beyond just people not having the ability to get paid to do their job. Photographers in general, because everybody wants to give it away for free. You just have everybody out there trying to like get exposure, trying to get themselves known, and in it, like I said, in the sunflower situation, inundating one location, or this, these Kansas City spots, inundating these locations to try and get their photographs, no matter what the requirements are, no matter what the restrictions are, just being out there and doing it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you had those social media photographers that went into the national park and were fined for walking
Oh
on
yeah.
areas that, but and then they ended up dying.
Oh my
They
gosh.
that went over the waterfalls. They trying to get and everybody's trying to get these. You actually hear every couple months that someone's going taking a selfie and falling off a cliff. I mean, they're more concerned about getting these shots, and I couldn't agree more. It's like everybody seems to want to be the first one to post something, the first one to post that an actor died, or the first one to post a picture of a beautiful place, and that's why you're right. These places are getting destroyed because people, one of the first things we learned was leave only footsteps. Right? Don't destroy anything, and and unfortunately that's not what's happening nowadays.
Leave only selfies. Take only selfies. Leave only memes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly what's happening now.
yeah, again, but counter to that, I think social media and we haven't seen, I think, this much interest in photography ever. In terms of that's the sort of counterpoint to it, is that these social media platforms, as much as they're can be demonized, and as much as they can say they're ruining the craft, I think they're making the craft that much more accessible, and that much pushing the boundaries of what can be created with it, and being able to, in this day and age, share all kinds of different types of imagery and photographers that in the past, even 10, 15 years ago, would have been really unthought of, in terms of the ease of being able to access and share that imagery. I mean, back in the day, you'd have to go to like individual people's websites or some boards and stuff. But now it's like,
Yeah.
again, you can go to, Instagram and see just a world of different types of photographers, be inspired, maybe grow, maybe learn from that, and become a better photographer yourself. So I would say, again, it's a double edged sword, right? It's kind of this Pandora's box that we've opened and exists.
Yeah.
We can't unleash social media on the world.
Yeah.
We're stuck with it.
Yeah.
So let's make the best of it.
But how do you feel? I mean, as a photographer, and creating content and putting so much time into it that now that so many people are photographers that you have, like you said, I think every single day we're creating more images that have been created in the past
Yeah.
in all of time.
Right.
So the lifespan of a piece of art or a photo is so short, and it's so rarely is it printed anymore. It's social media, and it's probably seen and flipped through within seconds. So these incredible photos have no lifespan anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So
No,
I
they
think it's kind
don't.
of
I
about
mean,
how that's the damage it's doing to photography. It's making it is just too much.
sure. Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but even looking at a photo magazine, I'll flip through that.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, I'd flip through it, be done within a few minutes. I mean, it's no different than skimming through a bunch of photos. I may look at a photo for about, I don't know, 2 3 seconds, if that. If it grabs me, you may get a few seconds of my time. If it doesn't grab me, I may just skim through it. Yeah, yeah. Again, you're right. It's like what value is there to photography or the individual photo in general? And I think,
Yeah.
again, it depends on what it is you want out of your photo viewing experience. So if you're looking to be inspired, if you're looking to really dig into stuff, I mean, honestly, there's photos that I want to zoom in on and see the details and see how they shot that and everything like that. But yeah, again, 99% of most of the work nowadays is kind of, mediocre or subpar. And that's not because 99% of the people doing photography are mediocre or subpar. It's just that with the inundation of everyone doing it all the time, you know, even great photos can be mediocre or can be, a dime a dozen. So it's like separating yourself from the pack, creating beautiful imagery. I think it's still gonna be impactful and it's still gonna stick out there. But again, it relates to how good the imagery is. Period. And again, again with everyone being a good photographer and being even great photographers, there's tons of great photographers. It's
Yeah.
if you're not just blowing people's socks off, you're gonna get swept by the wayside. And I think that's obviously another downside of social media is that again you have all these people who are good, if not great, who are now have the platform to promote themselves, who may not have been as out there as before, and now you're competing with everybody. So it does force all ships to rise, though I think, and those who are really
Yeah.
good will be able to separate themselves from the pack. The cream will rise to the top. So you know, and that's I think proven by the fact that there are accounts out there with really beautiful imagery that do get the recognition and the attention that they deserve.
Yeah, and on the flip side, there's such. We've never been in a time where social media can bring such incredible change and awareness to things so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, look at governments being toppled because of Twitter and Facebook sharing and showing real images of what's happening in other governments, and bringing awareness to the fires, or all the different things, and raising money, and showing images that normally you just wouldn't be able to see. So it can be used for good or bad, just like anything else.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's go and move on to our last topic this evening. This is going to be a short show, unless Travis and I can kind of make this last topic stretch it out. But I really chose this topic because I want Zach to get chime in on it, because it's all about like dealing with trauma, right? And I think Zach personally has been through a lot. He's covered a lot of protests. He's been attacked. He's been amongst in the middle of different sort of riots and stuff like that. He had a very sort of one-on-one personal relationship, I think, or connection to his story about the Charlottesville, about the young man who was beaten by racists. And so I think he could be the one who would really be able to talk to dealing with sort of emotional and psychological harm or scars that come from covering violence and tragedies. Now, Travis, have you ever covered any violence or tragic situations in your work? And I don't think so, but I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of. I've certainly been around protests and marches, and I've been around some violence in my days, but never as a photographer. I certainly have experienced it, and I was down on 9/11, and certainly was there for that, and so I've seen a lot of amazing things. But as a photographer, it's a whole different ballgame, and I think as any artist, we tend to be very empathetic creatures, and so I know it hits us in different and harder ways sometimes, and especially nowadays where we seem to be so divided that it's hard to find that. You really just want to find that common ground, and I know the other day, just a simple little thing. I was going to a shoot, and I walked onto a block in New York City, and it was this huge Halloween party, and I never didn't. I was just a normal day for me, and I was walking down the block, and suddenly I saw, people with turbans, black people, Hispanics, and they were all dancing and in costumes, and I literally, like out of nowhere, I started to cry out of my eye, and I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like. We're not supposed to be fighting. We're not supposed to. Everybody's supposed to come together, and it's like, why? Like, I think the all of this hate in this last year or two has just come to a boiling point. I'm like, we got to find our way back, because it's like it's much easier to go give someone a hug than say, you're this and I hate you, and it's like, I disagree with you. It's like we've really kind of come to this point, which is very different, and I think as a photographer seeing that, it really hit me so hard that day.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in war zones. I've been deployed. I've been in different situations like that, but I've never been to a point where I was like affected to a point where I needed help. And so I can't speak to what these folks are going through. The folks that are actually sort of in the middle of stuff, getting shot at, experiencing the trauma, whether it be again a military person or a civilian person who's experiencing trauma. But I know it's something that regardless of whether or not they want to admit it, will does eat at them. It does. It is something that affects demeanor, temper, and whatnot. So if you're sort of in that situation, maybe you're doing fine. But again, it's not something in the moment. It's something that happens when you're least expecting it, where you have an outburst or something like that. So, in terms of what kind of help to seek out there, um, there are institutions and organizations that I'm sure can help out. Um, Beyond obviously the typical ones like seeing a psychiatrist or whatnot. Um, I'm sure that there are organizations out there that'll help you out. Um, but I know there was like what was it? Yeah, it was a big controversy. Like I think it was like Get Help or something, some sort of like now there's this new whole culture of online psychiatric
Yeah.
services. That have some dubious sort of backgrounds and sort of structures to them, or at least in terms of vetting that they're psychiatrists. But there's more resources now than ever if that's something you're being affected by. So I'd say no
Yeah.
matter what the service is or the solution, you've got a lot of options. Again, you have these services that are online that you can pay a few bucks a month, I guess, and get access to someone who can talk to you. Or again, you can do the traditional going to see a psychiatrist or just reading. I think reading about other people's situations. Maybe that would help out. I don't know. I think it's definitely something worth talking about. But
Yeah, I think that it's very important to first. A lot of times it manifests in a way you don't even realize that it's affecting you
right,
and affecting you or your family or your friends, and it's just subtle different things. You may get a little anger quick here. You may get a little, these little things. But there's, I think the first thing you have to do is first identify it or listen and just reach out. The first thing is to actually just reach out and ask someone. It's just there's a lot of people out there that want to help, and I've dealt with a lot of charity organizations, and I deal with one, Heal Our Heroes, that deals with when soldiers return back and providing support structure for them, and especially for soldiers that have gone through post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff like that. And I know they've worked with organizations to get them, whether it's a companion dog to help work with them, or get all these different or doctors, or get them to be able to see someone. And actually, that gal is coming up recently. I'll be shooting, but there's a lot of organizations out there, and I think when you talk about mental health in this country, it's like we don't tend to take care of ourselves in certain ways, and it's very important to reach out and kind of just support each other.
yeah, I just want to raise a question, a comment here by our audience. Larry Leventhal, thank you for contributing, saying that NYC is rife with undiagnosed PTSD cases from 911. And of course, it's an anecdotal observation, so he's not talking from statistics exactly. But again, what he's seen is some PTSD in NYC, and I don't doubt it. I completely
Yeah.
agree that that's something you see, and a lot of these NYC folks, or at least some of the folks like police officers and whatnot, also serve in the guard and serve in the military and do deployments and stuff like that. So you take the compound of doing the job, which can be stressful, and tie that in with military service, and yeah, it can get to you. But I hope that there are resources even for those NYC folks um, and whatnot, whether it be police officer or just a general member, someone who lives in the area who can. I hope that there are resources out there for them that they can take advantage of. Because again, if there is an issue, you got to talk to somebody. You got to go out there and
Yeah.
get your talking through it is the most important thing. Because if you just kind of keep it to yourself and internalize it, that's kind of what I've seen in the past myself personally leads to suicide. Is again people without support structures. Is this just kind of taking it on themselves and they don't seek help.
Yeah, I mean, you've certainly seen a side of the world that, thank God, that most of us were protected by people like you, and in your service to us is very admirable, and can there's not enough thanks for you guys, and I don't think enough support for you guys in certain you put your lives on the line, and you're not greeted back with the same love as you are as we send you off. And I think it's very important to on people that don't serve like that to really reach out to people and just honestly look and say, hey, thank you, or you're important, or I'm here if you ever just need to talk. It's up to us also to reach out to people. It's not just them. It takes a village, as they say. You have to be able to identify and actually just look at someone and honestly say, hey, are you all right? Is there anything I can do if you ever want to talk? Just and honestly, just look at someone. Just engage them in the eye. We're always too on our phones and looking and worried about ourselves, but it only takes a second to just look at someone and say, "Hey, I got you."
Indeed. All right. Well, before we close this week's show, we talked about last week, and I guess we should update the audience. Jim Acosta was given back his press credentials to the White House. Any thoughts on this, Travis?
Well, it's kind of crazy. I mean, now they're putting in these rules of now one question, and if they want to, the mic gets passed, and they're putting in their rules so they can now kind of like dictate what the press does. And there's a long history of the press policing themselves, and I think we're in dangerous territory when they don't let them do that. And I know there were certainly people that didn't agree, journalists that didn't agree with sometimes the way Acosta questioned and stuff like that. And the press has been there, and they've pretty much policed themselves for years up until this administration. So I think we're running into dangerous territory when the president can pick and choose what questions he likes and who he gets to ban on. Just it was basically a question that he just didn't like, and he does that for effect. And he knows when he picks Acosta, he doesn't have to pick Acosta, to ask a question, but he does it. He knows what's going to happen. He picked the fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in their defense, ground rules are ground rules. If you've ever been in a press conference or hosted a press conference, the host can just dictate what the ground rules are. And, obviously, whether it's the White House or whether it's any event, usually a press corps or any media attending are given ground rules. And those ground rules detail can relate to anything from, hey, we need to stick to what we're talking about, to, again, one question per member of the media. If that's their ground rules, so be it. Now, does that mean that the media are going to follow that? Probably not. They are probably going to push that envelope to the
dangerous thing. I think the most dangerous thing is it's usually you find up. Journalists are brilliant in their follow-up questions, and when you're predictating, well, basically, you can only ask one question. We're going to pick and choose who does it, and and basically he's going to. If you see autocratic societies, it's like Putin does like one big press conference. You have to submit the question in writing. You get one question. It's like he's pushing it to that. So there has to be a free press, and there has to be their ability to do their jobs and sort of police themselves. When you start saying, well, you can only have one question. You can only talk on this subject. Today it starts with one thing, but he's going to push it to somewhere else too. It's always all right. We'll see how this reacts, and then we're going to do more. We're in a dangerous point here where the press and the people are really what can keep tabs on truth and keep tabs on an administration when the House and Senate fail to represent the people. It's the press that usually comes through and defends it. How many times does the press come through and finding it disclosing situations that never would have been brought to light are hidden?
Absolutely. But do we really need a free press? I mean, come on. No, do you really want to know what's going on?
Absolutely
Isn't it better?
not.
Isn't ignorance bliss? I mean, come on.
Absolutely. Just Comedy Central 24/7.
Yeah, just give me my distractions and, let me go about my day.
Netflix and Game of Thrones, baby.
Indeed. Who wants to know what's really going on? I just want to know what people tell me, Anyways.
Yep.
Well, that's going to end this week's show. It's a short show, but, hey, it's Thanksgiving week. Go quit listening to this podcast and go spend time with your family. Go eat some turkey this week and go take care of those Black Friday sales. Oh, speaking of Black Friday, you gotta mention this. You're gonna take advantage of any Black Friday sales there? You do that, or you ignore that?
You know what? I
Cyber
going
Monday.
out to the. Yeah, I'm definitely a cyber person. They go into the sales and fighting people for, and I think it's one of those things. Black Friday now is like suddenly there's a TV that's on sale for this, but that TV didn't exist before Black Friday. Right. They're making certain different. That's a different model number. So the deals are usually too good to be true. But I'm definitely that Amazon Prime, and I look for the deals. And I think I already bought a Nest Hello doorbell and a Nest camera for my house. So I've already partaken in the Black Friday deals.
I do have to say, if you are a beginner or if you know someone who is entry level photographer, Black Friday is a great way to get them into the DSLR world. I mean, I was looking online at these sales and like these doorbuster sales. I forget, maybe Target or Kohl's or wherever, and it's like $400 for a digital SLR with two lenses and like a memory card and a bag. And I'm like, Jesus. Back when
Yeah,
I
they were.
freaking got into it, it was like $1,000 for the digital body, the digital Rebel, the first one, and
I
now it's
think they
like,
were running
man,
on the Sony A6000 with the lens and all that for like $400, and
oh
like the
god,
A9 is discounted $1,000. The A9,
oh
right? For
jeez.
I'm just yeah, there's some definitely deals to get out there.
Yeah, if you're looking to get into the world of photography, this is,
Yeah,
these Black Friday sales are always the best time to do it because you can just, at least entry level. I don't know about the, again, there's mixed on the high end. Even on the high end,
well,
it's like, oh, here you can save a couple $100 off a multi-$1,000 lens. I
yeah,
don't think
but
you're
that's
gonna
fine.
see any big deals on the new mirrorless cameras that just came out. But again, whether it's new or used, it's like it's so
Well,
great
there's
to
that
be.
one, the Sony A9, which is their beast of a camera, is $1,000 off.
Yeah,
$1,000.
that's amazing. But
Yeah,
still, how much
that's
is that? Isn't that still like a $2,000 or two and a half
it's
thousand
like
dollar camera?
it'll bring it down to 3,400. It's like a
Oh, okay.
4,500 with it. Yeah, so it'll bring it out to 3,500.
It's yeah. So again, not exactly your entry level,
Yeah,
but again, if you're looking to get into it, beyond obviously the deals and discounts, you can get amazing high quality camera gear used, depending
yeah,
on what you want to do. So,
yeah.
anyways, get out there. I'll be probably taking advantage of a few Black Friday items, but it doesn't really draw me in it like it used to. The last time I really was like excited was when we bought our house and I was able to get a good deal on a washer and dryer set. That's about it.
That's a big deal. Those things are expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't go
One
out
of
there
those things
for.
you never. It's one of those cost purchases like you don't want to make it, but you're so glad when you did.
Yeah, I did buy a
Sort of
4K
like
TV last year. That's
it's
that's the
like
biggest.
it's like Drobo backup or the Synology backup. You don't spend that much money on an external backup, but once you do, you're thankful.
Exactly. I do like my 4K TV though. I watch home movies on it because I shoot everything. All my home movies in
Oh, is that
4K.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only content you can really watch on 4K is Netflix. Does 4K
YouTube does
on
it,
there.
and I believe
Oh,
Amazon has
yes.
4K content as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
I
again,
have to search for
all the applications are built into the TV. So I got Amazon, Netflix, and YouTube built into the
Netflix.
TV. So they're already
Yeah.
able to pump out 4K content. So,
Yeah.
but no, I shoot.
Are
I've
you?
actually been getting into shooting and editing on my phone. So I have a Note 9 and I shoot 4K 60 on that. So I'm shooting and editing on my phone.
Have you done the slow motion on the Note 9?
The super slow mo,
Yeah, the super slow mo.
I played around with it, but I just haven't.
Yeah.
It's really, you have to have like a specific
It's such a
thing
yeah.
to film with it, and it's like
Yeah.
it's
It's one of those.
the instances are rare that I would have
Yeah.
use for my slow mo.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Were you football games on Thanksgiving?
no, I don't care about
Nope.
football. Sorry, I'm not a sports guy.
Good
Go
enough.
whatever team I'm around the group that is rooting for said team. So if I went to a place where somebody is rooting for some particular team, they're like, yeah, go that team, sure, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll root for the
Very
Florida teams, if anything. Go
There you go.
Tampa Bay
Gators.
Buccaneers. Is
Gators.
Buccaneers playing? I don't know.
Tampa
Anyways,
Bay Bucks. Yeah. All right, brother. It's been a fucking darn pleasure.
well, there goes our PG rating. Thanks a lot.
I
Now we're
cut
gonna get
myself
banned.
off. I make it the whole episode in the last 2 seconds.
Travis, throw out the what you want to promote. Of course, the Cuba trip and everything. Throw that out there. And
Yeah,
whatever you
guys.
want.
So if you're interested in increasing your social media or finding out how to bring yourself to a different level in social media, I do that in workshops and personal tutoring. You can reach me on my Instagram at TWKEYES, or my website is www.travistrout.com. Travis, TravisWKeys, KEYES.com. I will be doing a trip with Bruce Byers and Camera Odysseys to Cuba in February, which we're going to do 10 days starting in Santiago, going to Havana and Vinales. And we'll have a creative director with us and street photographer, a local Cuban artist. I'll be doing workshops with strobes on location with some dancers and teaching people how to do that. But it's a photo adventure, so you can come with a camera phone or you can come with no camera at all, or we just make it fun for you. So it's a nice adventure, and it's an incredible trip, and really looking forward to it. The new year is going to be pretty fun this year.
And we just told you to go out there and get a cheapo camera on Black Friday, so you better come with a DSLR camera to Cuba. Don't be going and spending your money to go to Cuba and just take your cell phone. Come on, people. Anyways, get with Travis Keys. He will take you to an HNL. You know what an HNL is?
No.
A hoe, nada, level.
There you go. I'm gonna have to hashtag HNL from this point forward.
I know that's a key appeal. All right, all.
Oh yeah.
Well, this has been the first episode of season 4. I want to thank you, Travis, so much for taking time out to be on our episode this week. If it weren't for you, I'd be talking to myself, and nobody wants that.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Indeed. All right, well, for Travis Keys, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 151, proof 151, and we are out.